Next item is B, request for first read waiver. This is the ordinance follows a plan commission recommendation approving a special use permit for the automobile storage facility at 1326 North Rand Road. It's also known as Village Cycle in the city's B3 Commercial, Wholesale, and General Services District. Director Peterson attended the Plan Commission Zoning Board, and he can offer any information or questions.
Thank you very much. The owner, Mr. Eberhard of Village Cycle Sport, is here tonight, should you have any direct questions of him. This is a situation where the owner has had some previous parking, and working with the city came forward with an action to apply for a permitted special use in the B3 zoning district for vehicle storage on his property. In evaluating the application, the owner of the property has surplus parking in excess of what to support his retail business, approximately 6,800 square feet of excess parking in the western end of his parking lot. The applicant has proposed to utilize that space for rental vehicle parking. At the public hearing, there was testimony given, and some conditions were discussed. First of all, it would be restricted to the west 6,800 square feet. There would be no semi-truck or trailer parking. Storage of construction material and equipment are not allowed. However, construction trucks and trailers are, but the storage of actual materials would not. There would be it would be hard to enforce, but they discussed limiting the idling of vehicles. So based on the discussion, it put basically 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. With limitation on idling of vehicles in that rear yard. The wooden fence along the west property line would be repaired and made in a sound condition. And the owner shall provide contact information for all vehicles stored on the property if need be. With that, the Plan Commission voted unanimously to support a special use permit for the applicant at 1326 North Rand Road.
I'd like to ask you if I could. We have a new truck ordinance coming in, right? It begins the end of the year, Joe, is that when the...
It's already started.
Oh, it was approved, adopted.
Okay.
Commercial truck parking in residential zones.
Right.
That wouldn't apply
How,
to us.
Dan, how do you compare that ordinance compared to what you're allowing or suggesting we allow with these kind of vehicles?
Two things. Number one, this is not in a residential district, so the new truck parking ordinance would not apply. Secondly, there are residents that may have vehicles that don't comply with our ordinance that need a place to park. This may provide for them an opportunity to have a spot locally that they could keep their vehicles stored at if they're not allowed to be kept in their residential vehicle or residential lots. So that's how I see it.
Questions, anyone, please?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm not too familiar with the area, except with Rand Road itself. What's the property behind it, or that's adjacent to it? Is it residential?
The property to the north is actually in Arlington Heights, and that's the car dealership, which I believe now is a Subaru dealership. The property to the south is actually a vacant lot, which the owner, Mr. Eber, has under contract with, and we have an application for a new use coming forward next month. And then the property to the west is residential. That neighbor did attend the meeting, voiced no oppositions other than once in a great while, one of the vehicles will idle later at night, either warming up or when they're dropping off, and so we talked about idling at the meeting.
Is that the only residence that borders it?
Yes.
What is to the west?
Alder?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Dan, a couple of questions. What is directly to the west behind Village Cycle?
The property directly to the west is a residential. It's separated by a 7-foot wooden fence that's there that is in fairly good condition, needs some repair, which the owner said he'd do, and a tree line that's about 30 feet thick at this point in time, which is part on Mr. Eberhardt's property and part on the residential property.
Thank you. My other question is, you may have touched on it, but in listening to the zoning board meeting, do you have specific language in terms of vehicles that are stored there? Do they have to be operational? Are they in good condition or running condition? Or is it possible to store a vehicle that may look okay, but it's not running? My point is, could it be used as storage for a vehicle that's in need of repair, but they're waiting to see what they can do with it? Is that spelled out?
It did not get brought up specifically to this case. However, the city, under the property maintenance code, has a very specific and strict language about inoperable vehicles, which we actually made more restrictive at our last code hearings when we adopted the 2012 property maintenance code. So it is addressed in our existing codes.
Okay. But does it get,
Alderman Ludwigson?
Yes, a couple things. This falls in our business district, and this goes to what Alderman Williamson was talking about with the institutional memory of the aldermen that are here and new people that come in. I don't think we've talked enough about what that is, this business district that we spent a lot of time with creating when we had the Dominic store close and intentionally not lease out because it was in their favor to prevent competition, which cost the city millions and millions of dollars in sales tax revenue over the period of time that they were closed. It was disheartening because it was done, because it was a business decision which was best for Dominic's and not what was best for the city of Prospect Heights. So when that happened, we were very upset and decided to create a business district there because it really is one of our few acreage-wise largest areas of business that has commercial property along it. So the thought was, and we saw that when the storage company came in, that really wasn't a use that was good for the business district, but we created an agreement between us and them that then made it beneficial to us. I don't see there's no benefit to the city allowing parking here. To me, I think that once you let one, everybody's gonna ask for it, and there's no benefit for us to have that on probably one of our most busiest roads that pass through town. Originally, when the owner of Village Cycle came in, he was concerned because he had too much property with the building and the taxes were bad, which I can't imagine how much they are. They're probably enormous on that property, and you were interested in selling off a portion of it, and you would ask to park cars there, and I said, well, we'll do whatever you're trying to do with your property as far as zoning to try and allow somebody to come in and operate a business there in a business district, but parking has always been one of those things that's been touchy as far as off-street parking. I'm not in favor of this because there really is no benefit. Not that everything has to be beneficial to the city that comes in, but this is on the opposite side of beneficial. It doesn't, you're just filling up 6,800 square feet parked cars that come in and out. I know that we can set rules up that say, hey, you can't have cars that are inoperable, you can't have semis there. I was there last weekend and somebody had their car up on blocks and were changing tires in the back. So I mean, that kind of stuff is gonna happen, okay? So whatever we put in. Sure. I took a picture. I didn't think to put it in up on the screen.
I'm Joe Eberhardt from Village Cycle Sport, and you talked about the business district. Well, my main business is a bicycle shop, and I'm just trying to keep the business open. And I think that is a big asset for your business district there.
The cycle store?
Yes.
I agree, but.
And I'm a seasonal business with high taxes, and you have to be creative these days just to stay open in retail. That's the fact.
Right. No, it's just that use is not It's just not, I believe me, I fully understand, you probably get a good buck from the people parking there.
Well, it's not that much, but it's enough to, you know, it helps.
And like you and I had talked, if you wanted to put an addition on your building and get more square footage to rent, that's what that's all about. I'm
Well,
all
retail
for that.
businesses are closing every day now. You can just drive down the street and see that.
Right, but
So I'm not gonna be putting an addition on for the bicycle shop. I'm trying to keep the shop
Right,
open.
but you're kind of making my point. The next step after that happens, when people aren't renting buildings, is people are wanting to park cars and fill these lots up, and I don't want to see.
Well,
that
like
happen.
someone said, there is a need for that. Some people can't park their boat or recreational vehicle in their driveway. It's not allowed. They do need a place to put it.
There are a lot of needs in the city that we're not necessarily going to just say, you can go ahead with, and that's one of them. So I'm not in favor of it. I understand fully why you're doing it, I get it, but it's just that's a very important area to the city as far as development goes, and keeping there used to be problems, you're probably familiar up Rand Road, the problems they had with bookstores and all different things when the area kind of degraded a little bit, and as that property starts to degrade and you allow things to come in, it just tends to get worse, and to me, that's going in a direction that's not.
The lot is also 350 feet deep, and we're talking about the back 60 feet of it.
Mhm.
So it really is invisible from the road. And, you know, I have the side lot under contract, you know, with another business going in there that hopefully gets approved.
Alderman, if I could ask you, is your concern about not receiving income for what's happening back there?
No, my concern is a direction more, you know, I understand what he's saying, it's hard to do something with the property, he doesn't want to put an addition on and do what we're looking to do with the business district. I hate to go to the next lowest use of the property and say, now we're gonna park trucks, next it's gonna be something else, and we already park cars, can't we park trucks, so it's just gonna keep going. And frankly, everybody who's on that corridor would love to be able to rent out some of their parking spaces to somebody to park cars. It would just keep going, and I think it's important that we kind of, and we said this before, when you and I had talked, and we were trying to enforce the requirement that the provision that said you couldn't do what you were trying to do already, that we would work with you in any way we could on zoning to expand the building, to sell off the piece like you're doing, but this route to me is just not beneficial.
Well, the location where it's at is right next to a car dealer that parks a couple hundred cars on the lot, so
Not for
it's
long.
not like this would,
I mean, that
stand
property,
out.
they're moving up Rand Road.
yeah, but there may be another car dealer going in there.
Have you talked to them? I'd like to see you work with them to maybe do something between the
For
property.
me to go out of business and sell them my property?
You buy theirs if you want to do something.
A bicycle store cannot support, you know, it's hard enough where I'm at.
All right, but for anything bigger to go there, you'd have to have contiguous lots, and there's, you know, you have two of them, he's got a big one, there's one next to that. I think that's more the direction I'd rather see us go than,
You'd rather see someone buy my property, is what you're saying?
I'd rather see, if you're asking me what I want to see development-wise there, it's not allowing parking in every square foot of property that's there. Believe me, I understand your plight, and you said it's not that much anyway, but to me,
Well,
it's a big deal
helps.
to us as far as what it does to that district.
And I don't believe there's been any complaints, you know, about anything going on back there that I know of, or the police department. I don't know if you've heard any.
You were going to tell us about the car. You said there was a.
Oh, that was an employee working on their car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up the life storage thing, and what we worked out there was 1.5% tax
Mhm.
on everything they took in, income. It didn't specify where the income came from, but we got paid based on their gross income. If income is the issue, that's different than what you're bringing up, because we could charge, I don't know, $500 for parking stickers.
Well, every car would have to have a sticker there
Right.
anyway, regardless. I
Right.
understand
mean,
what
we
you're saying,
could
but
up the price to a point where would have income. I mean, the semi-trailer trucks, I believe, someone help me, they're paying $250 per sticker. That's the last I remember.
really,
we can generate maybe through that, that way. But you're more concerned about the idea of trucks and boats. Are you thinking about boats also?
Yeah, we did
All
discuss
right,
like
so-
a boat or a recreational vehicle, but not a semi-trailer.
Right, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
So that's a little different, but I just thought if we're trying to generate income, let's try to figure out how to generate income.
I think it's just more of a direction of the type of income. I just don't think that we need, once, that's the easy out to start to, I'm sure if every parking spot that's not used along Rand Road, anywhere in the city, if we told people you can rent that out on a monthly basis, who wouldn't do it? Tony's would be a full parking lot of rented spots. It's just not a good direction to go.
Well, you got Route 12 rental there, that isn't the most pleasant-looking place in a business zone. They park stuff all over the place, and
Right.
I'm not sure they do a good job cleaning up either.
But they're also leasing all those vehicles, and every time they lease it, they're
So
paying.
you're back to income now. That's
Right,
what you're
that's a
all about.
business use. I don't have a problem if somebody's got a business use. And if you wanted to bring an Avis car rental in there, and they were gonna lease cars before the
Well,
Ford
then that's- it's
dealership,
for the income, then,
I
is
would-
what you're saying.
but it's a
Because
different
parking an
kind.
Avis car or a car dealership or
No,
a vehicle.
now you're trying to say any car, it's all the same. I'm saying it's not the same because you're talking about boats, you're talking about inoperable cars could be parked there, different things could be parked there. It's not the same as an Avis car rental. That you have traffic, people coming in and out, renting cars, and if we can't agree on that that's different than just an all-out parking lot for storage of cars, we're not gonna agree that you're gonna understand my position. It's very different to have an Avis car lot versus a
Well,
cold
and those,
storage
they do
parking.
park right on the street, very visible from everybody going by. Like I said, I'm talking about the back 60 feet of a 350-foot lot.
I understand.
Well shielded is what you're saying.
Yes.
It's fenced, it's shielded. That's a
Right.
requirement we have for residential truck parking, to hide it. Well, you're hiding it already, aren't you?
Yeah, and when the other business hopefully goes in, that would be shielded even more.
Yeah. Questions, please, Alderman Williamson?
Director Peterson, does the special use, does it transfer to new ownership?
No, the way this ordinance is written is it will run with the use and user, not with the land. So should Mr. Eberhard move or change or sell, you would have to come back, they would have to come back and reaffirm, was the intent. And that's how it's written in the ordinance.
Because I personally, I feel for it, I understand the retail struggles. I personally think that it sets a bad precedent, because the moment that you get it, the trucks that we had to kick out of Nico's parking lot, Nico's is gonna say, well, wait a minute, Village Cycle has it across the street. The people who were parking over at Prospect Crossings are gonna say the same thing. Well, wait a minute, they're parking over across the street. And, it all sounds great on paper until all of a sudden it becomes the truck parking that is off of Palatine Road. And in our main business district corridor, it's truck trailers and it's, large buses. I mean, I've seen any number of things. And as you say that there's been no complaints, Joe, there has been complaints. Okay, they've complained to me, they've complained to Pat, I don't know who else they've complained to.
Residents have complained,
Yes.
or businesses,
No, the residents,
residents?
driving by, seeing it, what's all that going on over there? So,
Well,
there have been.
Were they
there have-
curious, or was that a complaint? Did they say, I don't like the way it looks? or-
Both, both.
Okay.
I mean, nothing formal, no lodged complaints, it's
Okay,
questions, and
sure.
Is there any
so
way?
it's not a use that anybody wants to see.
The one thing that does need to be, I don't know if everybody knows it, Mr. Eberhardt's the only B3 lot in our whole Rand Road business corridor. The B3 is the only zoning lot that allows vehicle parking as a special use. I just throw that out there because that's what the ordinance says. The other sites cited would be against zoning to do that, and that's why they were put on notices previously.
Is it a text amendment?
No, it's already an established permitted special use in the B3. And that's why he was able here to come, and he didn't have to ask for a text amendment to apply for a special use.
Alderman Dolick?
I stated my concerns. One issue that I disagree with is it is very visible from Rand Road. You mentioned that it's not. I see that each time I pass through there. One other issue that I ran into, this was back in August. I was riding with one of our officers through the night, and early into the morning, there were employees there setting up for a sale the following morning. And one of the employees mentioned that to the officer that there was a tow truck that was back there that had broken down. They weren't sure what they were going to do with it, but it was just there for the time being, just to inform the officer. That's my concern, is it could be a situation where we don't know what to do with it. It's not going to be permanent, but we'll put it back there. It does, I agree, set a bad precedent for just the visual aspect of it from Rand Road. I don't want to see that happen, and so that's my concern.
Alderman Rosenthal?
I would agree with what is said, and I think what this discussion leads to, and at least in my thing, is that we have to really take a look at this business district activity and come back with some definition in a non-emergency situation. I mean, deliberating on it and defining what can be there and what can't be there. You know, it's just more parking again, and it never looks right, at least in my experience.
Could we possibly, Dan, maybe you could work in on this too, give him a one-year moratorium so that he has time to locate someone else other than what's in there now, if everything is met that was talked about at your council meeting with the Building and Zoning Group. Is that something that can be worked out? I don't think we want to chase anybody out of our city. We're trying to attract them.
Well, Mr. Mayor, the reason why this came up is because that was what was going on. There was a moratorium. It was noticed along, this is not something that just came up. This has been going on for 2 years or a year and a half. And right when the city decided to start to really tell you, you can't do this, then the petition was filed for the special use. And then we've gone through that whole process. So this is not new, nor am I suggesting that he has to throw his people out next week. I do believe that you could have a period of time where you let them know and they can go, you know, to a different location. So this is not about trying to do something tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Would you be in favor of a 1 year? I mean, you're not going to find someone that's going to move in next week. We know that, someone different.
I believe that they should have a few months or a couple months to try and to relocate them, but the idea to say a year, we did that once, it became another year, then it became, now I'm going to apply for this special use, it just went on and on and on.
Well, he's not, but, excuse me, he's not looking for a 3-month break. He's looking to find another resident, tenant, construction, or something like that. That's not going to happen in 2 months. I don't remember that we gave him a written moratorium. Maybe we did, because I did talk to Dan about that some more than a year ago, you're right. But why not try to help him, and he can collect his income 6 months, how about 6 months? So he's got some time to market what he's got back there that may be available.
Can you commit here on the public airwaves that 6 months would be it? Or is it
If
something
that's what
that,
you tell me, that's what I'm gonna have to do, so I'm.
are you trying to find somebody else? Is that, he's trying to give you the opportunity to.
Well, no, we discussed this before, and I did find a buyer for that half of the property. So I am trying to, do things to, get businesses in there and, alleviate some of my tax burden and stay in business.
And when we had
That's
talked,
my-
that was the main thing about doing something with the other half. You didn't think that you could. And, then you worked with Dan and you were able to. I
Right.
thought it was over then. When I heard that you were in the process of selling that, I thought it was over until this came up, that you wanted to apply for this permit, so.
Joe, but honestly said, have you been aggressive about trying to move these people out and call it a better tenant, a good tenant.
Well, what
in.
type of tenant? I would have to put up a building, right, to get a tenant in there? Or what would be permissible as a tenant on that back property?
Well, permissible is easy. We've got the building and zoning person right here. I don't mean to say that he's gonna give it to you
I
now.
mean, if not vehicles, I don't know what else I could put on a big parking lot.
You may have to build something, yes, that could be true. But you gotta be aggressive, you gotta
It is a
advertise, you
parking
gotta
lot.
put a sign up there, you gotta do things, and I haven't really seen that.
Well, I did put up a sign in the lot. I hired a realtor, or I signed with the realtor that did get a buyer for that, half of that lot.
Yeah, what
Alright.
you sold was parking lot. I mean, I get it, it's parking lot, that's what you sold.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can get a back lot tenant that wants to build something. I know that the guy there's a person in town who does auto mechanic work that doesn't have enough space, and he's right around the corner from you. Could
So
that,
you'd rather have an auto vehicle place, like, kind of like the body shop, next door?
he doesn't do
with
body
vehicles
work, he
going
doesn't do
in.
body work, but he.
But I mean, it
does
would be
other-
permissible, right,
Correct,
to have a body shop?
correct.
Right, well, why
And
don't we?
there's a lot of permissible properties that would not be as neat and orderly as this, but I guess that's the way it's written.
All right, I asked the whole council, would like to have everyone agree. We don't often have everyone agree, but I'd like to have this agreement about taking 6 months, aggressively market the property, safeguard under the rules and regulations that are in effect now for what you have there, shield it, no idling, no, car, truck, that tow truck, whatever that was, should have been out of there as quickly as possible. Maybe it was, I don't know. But would the council members want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, Mayor, we have a request for waiver of first reading. It might be advisable to withdraw that request,
Okay,
and that would give the council and the applicant time to think about all the options that have been discussed. And then, because, just for the applicant, if it fails, if the vote fails, you can't come back for another year. And I think that would hamstring you if, moving forward, so I think perhaps we just withdraw the request for waiver, and you would come back at the next council meeting, would still be on the agenda for the next council meeting. He can decide, he can consider the options that have been discussed, the council can just consider the options that have been discussed, and he can make a decision on how he wants to proceed with his application, so he's not, he isn't banned from pursuing this on a failure of vote.
all right, are you suggesting this gets pulled off?
Well, no, it's on the agenda.
Let me finish. And let him come back for a 5-month moratorium?
Well, he can withdraw his application.
Right, so that he's got an opportunity to come back.
Correct. But I think if withdrawing the request for waiver tonight to allow you time to process this would be advisable. It would still be on the agenda for the next meeting. And you can make a decision of how you'd like to proceed before that next meeting. Otherwise, you may be more hamstrung in terms of.
Kevin, is it the special use that he's then restricted from even asking any special use for the next year?
For this type of special use.
So it really only applies to the car storage anyway.
And
He
yeah,
could come
and
back if you wanted to have a special use for, I can't think of what would require a special use to build an addition and have a business there, but if he was to have a restaurant, I'm just saying this because I know it requires a special use, a drive-through McDonald's. I mean, that requires a special use. He wouldn't be restricted from asking for that special use.
No, it's only for asking for the same relief that you were
Okay.
unsuccessful in asking for. But again, if we do the waiver and then vote,
Right.
and it fails tonight, that ends this line of inquiry for a year, essentially, and I don't know if that's
So
advisable.
what I'm hearing is if Joe requests a removal of what's on the agenda.
Of the waiver, yep. So it would be, it's first reading, we're at a first reading. You would have a second reading at the next meeting, which is the normal process anyways. And in the interim, you can
Try to work something out.
work something out, and then if you decide you want to revisit this, you can withdraw your application, or you can proceed, depending on how you feel.
Does
Just
anyone
gives you
have a
more time.
problem with that process?
I think that sounds like a good idea to me.
I would agree.
Good idea.
All right, let's do that. But 2 weeks, which is the next meeting, 2.5 weeks, doesn't give you a lot of time. It gives you time to think
Right.
and to talk and maybe ask for something different,
Okay,
okay?
all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Joe?
All right, so I take it B is continued,
Let's withdraw.
withdrawn, or B?
Well, the B, we had the first reading, so we just didn't have, we're not waiving it.
So the first reading is still in effect.
Yep, that was our first reading.
Okay, so
We didn't have a vote on it first.
You don't, yeah, we won't put on.
You don't have votes on
I
first.
know, but we had a straw poll. It's pretty tough in itself.
Well, so for first reading, it would just be a reading of the ordinance and discussion. There would be no vote. They would have had to vote to waive first reading and then go to second reading.
Okay,
So we had a first.
we're good. Move on. please.